Quite interesting, hey? Now, Antares, the word itself is Greek. Basically, Ant, Aries, as in the rival of Aries, because the star is so bright. Yeah, it came from an ancient tradition. It was very holy to the Persians, and it was the bedrock of what would be the earliest Babylonian astrology going back 3,000 years. Its very redness was associated with Mars. Remember Mars in our sky, close planet. Ah, arrival of Aries. There it is, the word itself. So you can remember how we label this star, Antares, 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 Antares. So the very redness, it brought military, war, aggressive. We know that the color red, we say it even in our English language, we're seeing red, you know, here in human America. She saw red. She couldn't see, blinded by rage. Yeah. Red flashed before her eyes, that kind of thing. So we know that everything is frequency, all of us vibrating. We all have our own alchemy. There we go. So we're looking at if we look to the past, the depth that was involved in the knowledge of any given culture as far as how much or little the association was going to color the nature of how this star showed up and how it was going to be treated. We can see they chose the image of a scorpion for this constellation. The scorpions we have here are light. They're a light brown bark scorpion. They're the most deadly. And man, your finger turns red. It hurts. It burns. It's painful. We know that when things bite, yeah, things swell up. We get irritated. Ow, at the very minimum. So think about it that way in relationship to Mars, that there is a strong Martian affiliation, okay, that rival anti-Aries, Antares, okay? With a strong Martian affiliation, now we're going to link gate 9 right now because of the star that's behind it to Aries. Interesting. Yeah. Energy. Now, according to Ra, that was the ancients. Now, according to Ra, he didn't consider Martian to be the most important, but that's how he got the label of the name. Jupiter, the sun, those two he considers to be more impactful. So this is his speculation that in all of this, the planetary affiliations we are going to explore help us, they give us keys to understand how the star is nuanced, its impact from the program impacting us. Program is not the enemy. It's not our friend either. It just does what it does, you know. It is what it is. Mars, that energy. Now link not only Mars, okay, from the ancients in the word, how are we going to link Sun and Jupiter in our mind to this star? Things might work for you that may not work for me. I think of Jupiter and I think teacher, I think deep, I think wisdom, I think information. I know physically that Scorpion, the Scorpio constellation, they can go deep. They can be like hidden knowledge. Yeah, the Akashic records, we link that to Jupiter. If you have that, ooh, think hidden knowledge and think how scorpions hide, don't they? Well, if you've lived here around them, you'll see that when you pick up a rock, oh, there's a scorpion. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to bother you, you know. From experience, you find this out. They seek water. Now, how are we going to link sun there? The sun, bright, glorious star field in this midst of the bright, glorious star field. Remember, they're both M-class stars. So think of Antares as an older, much more ancient star. our sun. Yeah. Because our sun is so freaking small comparatively, young yet, not a giant red gas, not yet. Okay, not close to exploding, thankfully. So Ross said that this was very interesting, according to the entity, like Antares, that is. There always have been people who are, as far as long as we've had the Ashna. Yeah, the Ashna, we are all experiments of consciousness and form. There have been human beings for 90,000 plus years who are reflective, self-reflective in their nature of consciousness, thanks to Ashna, head Ashna, as that is the development of mind. So our ability to see that visibly, it's one of the brightest objects in the sky. It is one of those things that we see. It is one of the earliest names that things had. We know names expand our Maya, right? Without a name, we don't have a way to label, identify. Remember, focus, this is detail, right? So if we think about the neutrino information streaming in, and we think about the limited consciousness of our development of modern human beings, the Homo sapien, before 1615, the 85 to 90,000 years ago. Remember when we had the development of the dropping of the larynx so that we could formulate words. This is when we began to have interest in things that demanded names. It's inspiring to think about the explosion. My mind said the Tower of Babel, when language developed. So it's suddenly beautiful to be able to have a name for something and to be able to point. So if you were sitting next to somebody watching stars and you go, hey, look at that star, you can have you ever tried it? Get as close as you can to their head and your head, and you cannot point and have them, for sure, you don't know, see the same thing that you're seeing because your eyes can't occupy the same space. So the angularity of your pointing is going to be different to them relative to your eye, right? But once we have a label, a name, now the beauty, the mastery of our ability to identify the mystery of what it is to have art. Look, Scorpio as a constellation, it's an art form. Yeah, somebody with some creative bent had the ability to identify the stars, the fixed stars, and the major massive one that helps us find the back of the carapace of that scorpion. Beautiful moment. So if we go back to that time frame, the mutation when it took place, it was in the larynx, and it was the polar opposition of gate 12 and 11. This is the experiential eye, 11, looking forward into the future, your left, or sorry, forward, past. Forward is the 17. That's logic. Looking past, okay, past. See how the eye, the little body graph, he's looking forward. There, 11 is looking past, so experiential, experience eye. Yeah, the ability to have ideas that bring about peace. And then we can see the 12, which is the newly mutated way of articulation, where we have this ability to mutate others with sounds, with language, with poetry, singing, art, verbal spoken language. So this 11-12 combination, the eye that records movement through space and time into the past, recording the experience that was connected because of the mutation. Yeah, 90,000 years. That's when we had the development of mind. It depended on our eyes and our communication, our articulation, our cautious or throwing caution to the wind in order to express the moodiness, the longing, the empowerment of the voice. How is it? The romance or poetry. How is it that we might My mind wants to say penetrate. I don't know if that's accurate. Opening up the mouth allows sound to express in order to penetrate the silence. Yeah, remember Fear of Silence 22, what it's pointing out? Okay. So that establishment of language took 5,000 years. You can see this is the phenomenon that arises out of that mutation, the quantum of what it is to be able to see and speak. When you put those two things together, now we have language, the way that we can communicate with each other easily. Now, this is rudimentary, as in it is an ancient construct. So much easier, wouldn't it be, to just look into somebody else's eyes, touch them, and know? What do we need words for? You, me, we need words. Those new human creatures, beings, the mutation, the raves, they will not need words, language to communicate. It's an interesting thing that people keep saying, hey, Lavina, have you heard about this podcast? What's that podcast's name? I keep forgetting. That they're talking about the children who are being born now being incredibly psychic. I have yet to listen to it. But this is the precursor of the coming time, the change that we are all within. Let's see here. Telepathy tapes. Thank you, Naraya. That's the one. Telepathy tapes. Showing our age. Tapes. Ooh, I want to hear. What's so interesting for Ra is that 70,000 years ago, we had that perfect alignment of these cardinal stars. And that was the beginning of trying to frame the whole, as in enclose consciousness into some kind of understandable system. He says it's really brilliant that these are the stars that awakened our interest in wholeness. And if we think about what it looks like, doesn't it look like a cross in the sky? Earth, you know, as within, so without. The beginning of the cosmic, mystical, astronomical sky gods, all of that stuff began around here. The moment, he calls it, when the great framework of the Maya becomes established. Because now we have language, communication, identification. He wanted to bring all of this up because of, he thought these two occurrences, the mutation of the larynx, 85 to 90,000 years ago, and this perfect alignment of these cardinal stars around 70,000 years ago, is probably an indication of how long it took the Maya to go from limitation, which is here, limitation of trying to look at each other and grunting, you know, to make communication happen, versus developing language as far as our throat center, mutation, formulating words, sounds, vibrations with our bodies to be able to coordinate and function in a different way than just grunts, groans, moans, and so forth. So expanding our Maya, because the Maya is a mind construct. That's what Maya is, mind, Maya, to measure. By giving these names to these objects in the sky, and also the framework of these constellations in order to give them meaning, value, communication of a story. The best way to learn, tell the story, share a story, share your experience. Because until you experience something, until you've gone through it, it doesn't really land in the cells. You know that thing when you learned from experience? Now, Lavina, with her many threes and third line mind and undefined splenic, might need to make the mistake repeatedly, especially with this brain swelling I've got going on, in order to find the ability to articulate what I learned to you in a, my mind wanted to say plausible, reasonable, a comprehensible way that allows for you to potentially, not always, but learn from my mistakes so you don't have to make them too. It's one of the things I value being able to pass on to you, particularly as the health has been failing and I get older. no matter your age. Isn't it something that we want to give back, towards the end of our lives, to pass on the message, the information? So, as a recap, we have the mutation in the gate of caution, 12, and ideas, 11, to develop language and articulation 90,000 to 85,000 years ago was the mutation of the larynx, and then 70,000 years ago, the perfect alignment of the royal stars, coinciding that with the emergence of our mystical astronomical frameworks. Astronomy was a regular thing for everybody to study back in the day, because look, what else are you going to do? You have no lights. You look up at the stars, you're sitting around a campfire, you're telling stories. So these are the moments that shaped our Maya, our illusion of our humanity, to develop these early cosmological structures that enhanced and fostered our collective awareness. Now I've got somewhere out there the song where we're both looking up at the same bright star in the sky. I mean, we see these stars collectively. They shape our framework. They give us context in the greater whole. Okay, now let's talk about the cross of consciousness. Those cardinal stars, they gave boundaries for what the significant universe was going to be. So you can see now we're looking at a medieval symbol that was part of the cross of consciousness era. Antares being a massive neutrino engine, remember, it's huge, giving us a deep frequency, elevating our consciousness potentially. So it is cross of consciousness back in the day where we can see some of the influence of how you, me, everybody, our ancients, our ancestors were imprinted by the global background frequency of the cross of consciousness. It's an interesting era that preceded the cross of planning. So planning, again, remember, it began around 1615. That's the beginning of the 17th century. Before that, to 1203, we had consciousness. Isn't that nice? Consciousness, before planning, before our sleeping phoenix on the rise, abundance in great disguise. Now here, until 2027, the last dying gasps we are witnessing, privy to, depends on how much you're paying attention to it, of course, and are you an insider or not. But basically, all of us can see the evidence of the tribal bargain, our agreements, contracts, the institutions, resource sharing, this cross having the development of our nation states, our financial systems, our healthcare, educational, church, and state, all these things. So that 9 playing a pivotal role, right? Because our structuring of our civilization currently focused on details and the refinement of logical patterns, identifying. Remember, logic is quite insatiable, isn't it? Insatiably correcting until perfection, looking for perfection. 2027, let it go. We're no longer looking for that. We're shifting away from the reliance on the external support systems. Recently, I posted a job on LinkedIn and I sent it out to my network because I was suddenly faced with, we need help. Somebody said, I can't do this work anymore. And we had to find somebody. I put out the ad, over 100 different people applying, and I didn't even pay for an ad. If you pay for an ad on LinkedIn, you get to see a lot more. It was 150 people applying. That's a lot of people looking for a job. What happens when they can't find a job? They have to create their own. That's the new era. Empowered, being busy, charismatically busy, doing what empowers you as an entrepreneur or a solopreneur, doing your own thing. There are many, many people out there now who are, instead of growing via hiring, a person. They are using tools, technology like AI to fill these roles. So AI isn't coming for your job. Your jobs are changing because of AI. This technological advancement, the crowning jewel of the cross of planning, is wow, we don't need that anymore. Now we can do what we love to do, being empowered, instead of slaving away at a job that you hate. Let's say you don't like menial tasks. Me, if I have energy, I love cut and paste for some weird, stupid reason. I love little detailed things, doing little things. But it's no longer about having to. So when your time is freed up to do the things that you love, like be creative or contemplate, process, experience, dream, just be, rather than having to do all the little detailed menial tasks. What might your life look like? In 2030, we will see a very different reality, because that'll be 3 years beyond the 2027 shift. Yeah, no more reliance on the external support systems. Please give me a job. Ooh, isn't that difficult? And yet some of us do. We need support. I'm not dogging on anybody who needs to look for a job. Please understand me. I'm saying that jobs are changing. Yeah, work is changing. In order to keep up with the times, the shifting sands of time, we have to change with it. We have to embrace how things are shifting, because there is no swimming against this current, the sea of changeability. Look at this cross of consciousness from 1203 to 1615. What do we think about? The first thing I think about with consciousness is my daughter. Obviously, she's a 1-3 consciousness. But also, too, I think about someone I looked up to. Didn't like her incarnation cross initially. She wanted this one, the cross of consciousness, an enviable cross to those of us who want to wake up. It defined our spiritual exploration, our existential questioning, our mystical and cosmic connections, our traditions. This era saw massive upheavals. The Renaissance, the birth of, the rudimentaries of modern sciences. We have the gate of doubt and confusion up there in the head center, right? Where it played a major role in our transitioning from mysticism, cross of consciousness, towards the next one, which was logic, right? Of the support structures now breaking down. So let's take a look at the 64 gate of confusion. That period from 1203 to 1615 was marked by a profound social, political, and economic upheavals across multiple regions on our planet Earth. If we think about the context of the larger cycle, people who are very confused and doubtful, right? Very deep social confusion, experiential confusion relative to how we are here to share this mental pressure. An era, according to Ra, that was of great turmoil and suffering. Does that sound like fun to you? Turmoil and suffering? No, thank you. And yet, this was the era. This was the background frequency field. You cannot fight that current. So we had great famine. Look at 1315 to 1322, the Black Death. 1347 to 1351, we had crises eroding our traditional feudal systems. We had labor shortages, peasant revolts, and the shift beginning towards urbanization and wage labor. Russia had a time of troubles in 1598 to 1613. Following the collapse of the Rurik dynasty, Russia itself, Mother Russia, descended into chaos. The succession crises, revolts, foreign interventions, a Polish occupation. That crisis ended with Romanov's dynasty rise in 1613. And we had shifting work ethics, where the rise of capitalism altered our perceptions of labor. While some societies emphasized communal work ethics, Others, influenced by Protestant ideals, linked productivity to moral virtue, creating tensions between traditional and market-driven economies. So, see the productivity of the sacral. Remember that the current background frequency has a 9 in it. So, identifying as we move through this, well, developed through the cross of consciousness, we move into the cross of the planning era. We're looking at two very powerful sacral gates. Isn't it interesting how to this day we still see the pressure on our productivity? Those of you who are sacral, maybe you don't feel it as much. Maybe you do if you're quad right or, you know, not very energetic with those planets that are there. Yet those of us who are non-sacral, 30% of the population, we feel it tremendously. Yeah, that busyness, doing, focusing, productivity kind of a thing. So that great era of turmoil and suffering brought these crises, as an example, that reshaped our societies by accelerating the decline of feudalism and the rise of centralized states. And then we had nation states developed through the changing time of our global restructuring. 63, the gate of doubt. If we look to the other side, the different arm of the wheel, this is one arm, so the different polarity. We see fundamental science. Think about what it means to have Pisces, the Piscean Renaissance, the counterpoint in that particular era. So our printing press was invented in around 1440. And now we get mass dissemination of our scientific, also religious texts, don't we? Our democratizing of knowledge and our accelerating of intellectual exchange, which is now an explosion thanks to the internet. In astronomy, Copernicus's heliocentric theory in 1543 challenged geocentric views. So heliocentric, sun as the center versus earth at the center, partly influenced by the Arabic critiques of Ptolemaic, Ptolemaic models. Anatomy and medicine. So we have this guy's big hairy deal name, holy moly, Andreas Vesalius de Humani Corporeus Fabrica. Wow. 1543. He revolutionized anatomy, building on Arabic anatomical illustrations. And then we have engineering and mechanics. Thank you, Leonardo da Vinci, for his designs for flying machines and hydraulic systems. He synthesized Arabic mechanics and classical principles. So when we look to the medieval mystics who were interested in the stars, everything that they cared about and carried into our Maya about the stars was brought through the traditional Renaissance period. So the story that we're getting, as we're seeing, like as an example, the mathematical advancements of Arabic numerals, algebra, not even going to try it, trigonometry. They were integrated into our European sciences and replaced cumbersome Roman numerals, enabling more complex calculations. So it was that Middle Eastern knowledge that was imported through Italy, often through Venice, and eventually it found its way into a very select group of intellectual pursuers of one kind or another, where they took on a very different kind of value, this information, the stories of the stars, because astronomy, accordingly, and navigation, we had tools like the astrolabe, which was used for timekeeping and celestial navigation, and the star catalogs by scholars like Al-Battani were translated into Latin. And these are innovations that underpinned our European explorations. In optics and physics, we had a book of optics, laid the groundwork for understanding light and vision, influencing the Renaissance artists like Da Vinci. Trying not to butcher any more words there. Our process together in this journey is to have a glimpse of what our nuances are when we look at these stars and what it points us to. Clearly, you can see Antares, the scorpion, this very, very powerful symbol. Get bit by one, you'll see, very powerful. Now, Ross said that this symbol was tainted by our 20th century astrological interpretation. He doesn't think that the true depth is something that is actually appreciated through the modern times. It's something, our influences of the stories that are told, it moves, right? Because our focus, see the pun, our focus may be on other things rather than the redness of the enemy of Aries. It's a great force nonetheless. We're following that flow of changes and seeing. This is a symbol of the possibility of resurrection too, not in the Christian sense, but in the magical sense of the word, as in having something begin anew, being a new man, a new woman, a new it, they, whatever you want to identify with, this new possibility of being. This is something that is inherent in the energy field of what it is to be the constellation, a part of the constellation of Scorpio. So my suggestion in your studies, to bring it back to the practical, is to look to this area of the wheel, like open up your chart in the mandala and see what planets are here in gate 9, maybe right next door, you know, because within 5 degrees, it's still affecting, okay? Still, sometimes they even say 10 to 15. It's still something that gives you something. It's still within Scorpio anyway, those planets, right?